Okay, so we have Laura with us this morning, and say hello, Laura.
Hello.
Hi. So most of you will know Laura, but some of you won't know that Laura is also a doctor, and she is going to talk to us today about some of the realities of pedestrian-related traffic collisions. To put that into some perspective, in 2014 in the UK there were just under 5,500 pedestrians killed or seriously injured in collisions with traffic, with a further 18,000 injured to a lesser extent. So, Laura, as a doctor, you must have seen some injuries and some horrific injuries as a result of collisions of these kinds. So, what can you tell us about that?
So, in part of my training, I spent some time in A&E, and basically some of the most devastating injuries can happen as a result of road accidents, even at kind of unexpectedly slow speeds of sort of 20 to 30 miles an hour in residential areas. And head injuries that happen can be fatal or significantly life-limiting at least. And then there are also the pelvic and the lower limb breaks, which would have a big impact on a runner, at least postponing, sometimes even ending their running pursuits, which is obviously a significant thing for people like us.
And in your opinion, what is it that actually does the damage, or in the worst case, what is it that would kill you, in a collision with a vehicle?
So in road traffic accidents, it's somewhere around about a quarter of fatalities that are pedestrians, just by virtue of having no protection. And most commonly, I think, it's head injuries or pelvic injuries that cause lots of internal bleeding that result in people's deaths.
So if you were hit by a vehicle, or you're involved in some kind of collision, what sort of time does it take to recover from that, and what stages in the recovery are involved?
So obviously it depends very much on the episode and what kind of injuries are sustained, but some of the things that we've already mentioned, so head injuries or significant spinal injuries, can lead to a big disability, and the recovery time can be quite prolonged, starting with weeks in an acute hospital, being looked after by a surgical team or an orthopaedic team that are responsible for bones and breaks in bones. And their main focus would be saving life or saving limb, so making sure that you survive the incident. And then there'd be a period of many months of rehabilitation to try and get function back. So that would involve sometimes a stay in hospital with intensive rehab, or being discharged home and having a community team of physios and occupational therapists helping you out to try and rebuild your muscle strength and get yourself back to full function. So that can take months and months, even years, to get back.
So it must be very difficult as a doctor having to go into a room and tell the family of somebody that's been hit that they've died. That must be very difficult.
Yeah, it's telling anyone that a relative has died is without a doubt one of the most difficult parts of the job that doesn't get easier. Even an expected death where someone's been in hospital for a prolonged period and gradually deteriorated has a significant impact upon a family. But a sudden and unexpected death, often of a young individual, would have an even bigger impact, because people really struggle to get their head around what's happened, and they go through a number of stages of denial and anger and feeling guilty and wondering what if. And a family who've had an unexpected death of a young person will quite honestly never be the same again. And for a healthcare professional, it is something that just never gets any easier.
No. So, tell me about your friend or a colleague that was a runner,
Yeah.
and who was hit and involved in a traffic accident.
He was quite a keen runner, and he'd gone out one morning in the countryside in the West Midlands for an early run, and had basically been hit by a car, not at particularly high speed, but he got, I think, 3 or 4 fractures in the lower part of his leg, and had to have one of those funky devices with pins and screws and
Caliper.
yeah, well, like an external fixator, like a pins, screws and multiple kind of adjustments over a period of 12 months. He's walking on crutches. Eventually that's removed, and it took him a good 18 months before he was walking without crutches, and he did get back to running eventually, I think, but not to the same standard, and it took an awfully long time, and things could have been a lot worse, but it took him quite a long time to recover.
And psychologically, probably not the same again.
No, not for running on his own in the country lanes. That wouldn't be something he'd be keen to take on again, I don't think.
So, what we've seen is, that there are some horrific horror stories out there. But if you had then, Laura, as a doctor, one thing that you could say to runners thinking of going out running at night, what would that be?
Yeah, so I think it would just be to stay safe and be seen, which I think is the motto of the club at the moment and the motto of these videos. Basically, if you're in a residential area and cars are travelling at 20 or 30 miles an hour, the injuries that you could sustain if you're struck directly is still huge, life-changing and possibly even fatal. So your only line of defence as a pedestrian is to make sure the cars can see you, giving them enough time to stop before they hit you. So high-vis clothing, lights, they're the only line of defence that we've got, so we just have to wear them, and that's the only way to really avoid anything that is something other than a genuine accident.
Fantastic. Well, Laura, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for speaking to us, and we'll see you soon.
Yep.
Cheers.